Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, The Week in Games. It's the weekly game segment I do every week, except for the weeks that I don't do it. And every few weeks, you can count on some sort of week when I'm going to do a week in games. That said, let's get rolling. School's in session. It's fall. It feels like fall. Starting to see some changing of the tide in regards to weather a little bit. Homeschooling. I do homeschooling now. I've done it for the last 2 years. This is the last year of homeschooling for my youngest, who is going to be finishing his senior year, um, which has been pretty flawless and smooth so far, except for the part where some of his textbooks got shipped to Fairbanks, Alaska. Not even sure how that happened. Anyway, let's get to the news. In the news, Massive Darkness 2 was something I was touting last time I did a week in games, and it finished with millions in the bank. The final pledge, like all in, was like several $100s. I didn't go all the way on this one because I had other Kickstarters I was looking for too. I actually ended up selling my copy of Massive Darkness, the original, which I liked. I just didn't like the single player game, and I think the difference was only like $20 between selling the old copy and getting like Kickstarter for the new copy. So yay. Root is available on Steam, which is a game that I really like, though I like with all 4 players, and sometimes it's hard because of the asymmetric nature to find 4 root players. But it's still a game I root for. It's not that bad. It's even in pre-release. I think it's actually pretty good. And then in other news, why play Fortnite when you can play Fort tonight? That's right. Leader Games, who've done Root and Vast, are doing sort of a kids-like game with a vibe like a kind of a Willy Beamish kind of clever, unique vibe where you're just basically building a fort. It seems much simpler than the other two, so I think it's probably got some more table power than the others. And Maracaibo is coming to digital, well, iOS later this year. I love me some Maracaibo. I hope it makes it to a PC, but I haven't bought an iPad in a long time, but Maracaibo, it's so good. And finally, Stonemaier Games is basically about to release or pre-release Tapestries, Plans, and Ploys, which is a well, it's an expansion for the original Tapestry, which I didn't do a review on. I thought Tapestry was okay-ish, and so naturally it makes perfect sense that I must get the expansion. Tends to be my way. Anyway, let's get to question of the week. So, question of the week. What game or game line has jumped the shark for me? Now, for those not familiar with that vernacular in other countries, there was a show called Happy Days in America during the late 70s era, and it was extremely popular, and it had the Fonz, this main character. At one point, though, the writing of the show got to the point where they had this just far-fetched scenario of going off and him motorcycling across an ocean with a shark in it, and so it got to be known as jumping the shark. It basically describes a game or series of games that you really, really like, but then you just finally hit a point when you're like, yeah, now it's ludicrous speed, but not in the fun Spaceballs way. So I started thinking about that, like what is? I would have gone with Dominion, except because it is saturated. Like the expansion packs just line the wall if you really want to buy in all to Dominion. But the problem is that I've had a resurgence lately, and I still enjoy playing it. So it's not like it jumped the shark, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I mean, I honestly couldn't keep up. I think I have all but 3 of the expansions, and then the last 3 I kind of just kind of powered down on. Although I might end up picking those up because it's making a resurgence. Um, the other game, I had another game, but I'm going to wait for the review on that one to mention. But probably the series that made me jump the shark is probably the Tiny Epic series. Now, I don't want to badmouth it because I have all of the Tiny Epic series games, all of them. They're all in a big stack, really high. And I think the problem is not with the games because they do exactly what they intended here. They're little bite-sized pieces of a larger scale game distilled down to the bare essentials and nothing more. It's pretty amazing how you can pack the gameplay ideas of dinosaurs and space and galaxy defenders and quests and tiny epic this, tiny epic that. The problem that I find and why I've sort of retired them and probably and not picked them up anymore is because they really whet my appetite to play something meatier. And so why not just cut to the chase and play something meatier? Like if I'm going to play Tiny Epic Quest, I could play Runebound, 3rd edition, Tiny Epic Dinosaur. I have Dinosaur Island. Tiny Epic Tower Defense. Well, there's several of those I have, and they do a good job of saying, okay, this was a nice, tight little experience. The only one I think that I found would be an outlier in that is Tiny Epic Western, which I don't think has a strong analog to some greater big game other than Doomtown Reloaded, which, lordy, do a digital version of that, and I'll buy 3 copies. But yeah, what about you guys? Is there games where you're like, I collected, I invested, and I just got to this drop-off point where I'm just like, powering down? Let me know. And on that, let's get to 3 games. Okay, game number 1, Solar Storm. This was a game that seems sort of like Pandemic in Space, but it's 1 to 4 players, and it was cheap. It's one of those, I call it it's kind of the game that jumps, that gets you over the edge. So if you're just about at the point where you get free shipping, this is the game that put me over the edge. So yeah, it's not high praise for it. That said, I am intrigued about it. It was reviewed earlier this week by someone who said they didn't even know why it existed, but I kind of think it's a little better than that. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I haven't played it yet, but maybe I will, and then I'll come back with my thoughts. Kingswood, another game that happens to be over the shipping hump edge. Looks like a very simple kind of, it's almost like a little, seems splendorish, vaguely, with, I don't know, it's just weird, but it's so simple, and I'm looking for simple these days. And finally, what I really wanted to buy, and what got me to get to, I needed free shipping, was Alma Mater. This is from the makers of Coimbra. Coimbra was one of the most delightful games of last year, with glorious fun artwork. This is very different. Even reading the manual and looking at the components, even though they have similar style, the layout and the handling of how it goes is very different. This is not Coimbra 2 at all. So I'm going to do a review of it, and hopefully it's great, or else I'll find something the matter with it. Oh, I'm just kidding you. Anyway, all right, let's get to Alphabet Soup. We are at W. Can you believe that we are at W? Like, I have done enough of these to be at W. W was a good, rich environment. Target rich with opportunities. Let's get rolling. Top of the line, War of the Ring. Would there be any other? As an avid fan of Lord of the Rings, read Lord of the Rings every year. Love game after game, and I have a ton of Lord of the Rings style games. War of the Ring is the top-notch 2-player quintessential War of the Ring game. With the expansions, it's even more just powerful. It's the I'm on an island, I'm playing this game in perpetuity kind of thing. Bottom of the Barrel, I like that one. Warriors was a game by Borg. I bought it on name recognition. Just sad, just disheveled, disjointed, discombobulated mess. Avoid. Came out of nowhere. I had looked at War Chest for a long time, and it looked sort of like a Splendor Chest kind of thing. And I didn't really give it much of a chance until a game convention when someone said, this is actually pretty cool. And it was. It came out of nowhere. I bought it. I immediately bought the expansion, and I have played it with everyone I could inflict it on ever since. Fun game. Fun game. Right? Riches to Rags, Wiz War. I played a lot of Wiz War. And then at some point, it just kind of derailed down to where I felt like I could get more interesting things going on with the time. Still has some very intriguing kind of ideas and stuff, but like Dungeon Twister a little bit. It doesn't, it's sort of lagging behind now. I mean, maybe they'll do another version of it. I don't know, but it was fine, but it definitely went from heights to, okay. Rags to Riches. I bought the Wing Leader game used from a friend, and read through it, and I'm like, oh, cool, 2D warfare, like in this battle. Instead of looking down like you're a general, you're looking sideways, sort of like those old coin-op games when you had the little spinners, and you had the planes going up and down, and you're dropping bombs, or scramble, or defender kind of thing. This was kind of the way it goes, and I dropped that one for a couple of years because it just seemed like there was a lot of little minutia. Picked it up again last year. earlier this year. They blend now, and it hit me again, and it hit me right. And I'm like, this is very compelling. They did a really good job of simulating, missions. They did a good job with handling, altitude and spotting and finding. And sometimes the game just doesn't resonate, and then click, 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 click. There, now it resonates. It happens. Meaty Mighty Manwich has to be War Room. I watched this game played, and it's the most closely modeled, true war room, old style generals around a circle of the earth kind of thing. It's crazy. It might not be as complicated per se. I mean, it is sort of from the guy that did, well, it is from the guy that did Access at Allies, but it definitely feels like just epic and grand and sweeping panorama game. So, Test of Time, clearly War of the Ring. I would love to see. Oh man, just delightful. War of the Ring. Like, I'll play it anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Comeback Tour. Witcher adventure games sucked for me. It was all this wonderful artwork. It set the stage. I'd played The Witcher. I've read The Witcher. I've now watched The Witcher. And then it's just mundane. Here's an adventure, but the adventure is really just collect these resources, and that's your adventure. Once you get, I know what it tried to do, but it just didn't do it, at least not in my house. So what I need is a Witcher adventure game that's more along the lines of, say, give me a Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth experience in the Witcher universe. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Make that happen. Honorable mentions: theme, War of the Ring; artwork, Wingspan, which I would have loved to give to some award here at some point, because it definitely has some. It definitely could have. It was in the running for a lot of awards, but ultimately it's the artwork that wins it over. The gameplay's fine, but the artwork is the thing that really sets it apart. I mean, cleverness, I have to go with World of Yoho, a piratey game from years ago where you are using your cell phone, and you're basically putting your cell phone on the board, traveling it around. It comes with an app. I honestly haven't looked at it in the last few months, so I don't know if they've kept up with it, or if they at least, mothballed it so that people can get to it. But, of course, the downside there is people have to have their phones. You have to have them on the table, which means that if a phone call comes in, you can't pick it up. Surprisingly big barrier for people who are just like phone addicted. But I love the idea. I thought it was very clever. I think they could have probably maybe benefited from just using ships and maybe had an app kind of thing or whatever. But there's a lot of pirate games coming on the horizon, so I don't expect that it's going to be in the forefront of my queue. But I still appreciate the cleverness in the attempt. So that's it. That's what we've got for today. I hope you guys are having a great September. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.